17. A ripped backpack. One sheet of paper. Don't come back. That was all they left her with. No goodbye. No hug. No tears. Just the sound of the lock clicking behind her as snow bit into her skin like tiny knives. From the upstairs window, a figure watched, wine glass in hand, then drew the curtain. She didn't look back. Because when the people who gave you life decide you're nothing, what's left to lose? Don't look away. Her story is just beginning. Ivy Quinn had grown up in a house that made strangers gasp. 32 rooms. 5 fireplaces. Chandeliers that cost more than a year's tuition at Harvard. From the outside, the Quinn estate in Everton Hills looked like the kind of place where perfect lives were lived. But inside, in the quiet spaces no one cared to look, lived a girl who was never truly seen. She was born in the second year of her father's first marriage, an event no longer spoken of at the dinner table. Her mother had left when Ivy was just 5. Or died. Or disappeared. The story changed depending on who asked and how much wine Lillian had consumed. Dr. Everett Quinn, her father, was a man who saved lives for a living but couldn't be bothered to acknowledge the one he helped create. He spoke in clinical sentences, moved with surgical precision, and looked at Ivy the way someone might look at a mess they forgot to clean up. "You're not smiling properly, Ivy. Fix your posture," he'd murmur at galas, his hand tightening on her shoulder in a grip just shy of pain. "Try not to look so lost." She tried. God, she tried. At 11, she stayed up all night perfecting a science project, replicating the cardiovascular system in a working model that actually pumped dyed water. When she got an A, she raced home, beaming. She stood outside her father's office for almost 20 minutes, clutching the paper, too scared to knock. When she finally entered, he glanced up from his desk, took the paper in his hand, and scanned it once. "Don't let it drop below this," he said. "Colleges look at consistency." That night, she cried into her pillow until it was damp. She told herself it was okay. Maybe next time he'd be proud. Maybe next time he'd say her name like it mattered. Lillian Quinn, her stepmother, didn't hide her disdain. She was everything the upper crust adored: elegant, intelligent, ruthless. Her presence filled a room like perfume, expensive and suffocating. She took over the Quinn household with practiced grace, decorating everything in muted gold and cold perfection. Everything had its place. Ivy didn't. "Ivy, darling, why are you standing like that? You look like a street orphan. Don't speak unless spoken to. You have a way of sucking the air out of a room." The only rule of survival was to stay invisible. But Brielle, her half-sister, was born to be seen. Blonde, blue-eyed, and unbearably sweet, when adults were watching, Brielle moved through life like a golden thread. Teachers loved her. Neighbors adored her. Even the staff whispered her name with admiration. When no one was looking, she was cruel in small, efficient ways. A spilled juice on Ivy's homework. A lie told just loud enough to be overheard. A pinch in the dark. "Oops," Brielle would smile. "Sorry, sissy." Ivy never told. It wouldn't matter anyway. But the worst day, the day that cemented her place as the outsider, came one lazy Sunday afternoon. Lillian's prized antique vase, an Italian heirloom passed down for generations, was shattered on the floor of the sunroom. Ivy had just walked in, holding a book. Brielle stood nearby, eyes already glassy with crocodile tears. "I didn't mean to." Brielle cried. "Ivy scared me." Ivy blinked. "I didn't touch it. I wasn't even." "Liar." Brielle shrieked, burying her face into Lillian's designer dress. Lillian's eyes narrowed. She turned toward Ivy with slow, deliberate steps, her heels clicking on the marble like a judge approaching the gallows. "You clumsy little bastard," she hissed. Ivy's chest tightened. Her voice caught in her throat. She turned to her father. He was standing by the door, watching everything. "Dad," she whispered. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just looked away. Later that night, Ivy sat curled on the window seat in her room, her breath fogging up the glass. The estate stretched endlessly beneath her, glowing warm and golden. But she felt none of it. Not the light. Not the warmth. Not the belonging. She wasn't part of this world. She was tolerated. Hidden. Forgotten. And deep down, something colder than winter began to grow. The cold that night didn't just bite, it devoured. Wind howled through the barren trees lining the Quinn estate like wolves circling something wounded. Snow fell sideways, sharp as splinters, stinging every inch of exposed skin. And there she was, Ivy Quinn, 17, shivering on the front steps with nothing but a frayed backpack and a crumpled piece of paper in her fist. 4 words, scrawled in ink that hadn't quite dried. "Don't come back." No explanation. No warning. Just a sentence, and a door that would never open for her again. The mansion loomed behind her like a tomb, each window glowing with golden warmth that no longer belonged to her. She didn't speak. Didn't scream. Didn't ask why. Because deep down, she already knew. The final straw. She wasn't even sure. Maybe it was the missing earrings Lillian accused her of stealing. Maybe it was Brielle's latest lie, whispered sweetly into Everett's ear after dinner. Or maybe they'd simply grown tired of pretending. The door didn't slam. It clicked, quiet, final. Behind her, laughter broke the silence. "You should see your face right now," Brielle giggled, holding up her phone to record Ivy's slow descent down the icy steps. "Wait, smile. Say something tragic." Ivy didn't answer. Her breath came out in ragged clouds. The snow soaked through her jeans within minutes. Her hands were already numb. She reached the edge of the driveway, dragging her torn boots across the salted gravel, when something made her turn back. Just once. Upstairs, through the tall arched window of the master bedroom, a silhouette stood perfectly still. A wine glass in hand. Crimson liquid. White curtains. Lillian. Their eyes met. Or maybe Ivy only imagined it. Because in the next second, Lillian slowly, deliberately, pulled the curtain shut. As if erasing her. Ivy stood there for a long moment, her body aching, her lungs burning from the cold. No one was coming after her. No one was going to call her name, say they were sorry, change their mind. She clutched the paper tighter. Then turned and walked into the dark. One step. Then another. Until the gates closed behind her with a hiss. 17 years inside those walls. And now, nothing. No ID. No money. No plan. Only the bitter taste of exile. And a storm that would not let up. The city didn't notice her. It had no time for girls with no name, no ID, no home. Ivy became just another shadow slipping between alleyways and empty benches, another body hunched beneath flickering street lamps. The snow had stopped, but the cold clung to everything like mold, inside her sleeves, her shoes, her chest. Daylight didn't bring warmth. Only judgment. By the 3rd day, she stopped counting hours. Hunger hollowed her out. She walked in slow, robotic steps, the soles of her boots separating from the seams. The only thing that kept her moving was instinct, animal, automatic. She tried the bus station first. The benches inside were metal and lined with other people who smelled like the street, some muttering to themselves, others curled into coats too thin to matter. Ivy tucked herself behind a vending machine, clutching her backpack like it held something sacred. It didn't. Just a cracked phone with no signal, $2.17, and a change of clothes she wouldn't dare put on in public. That night, she didn't sleep. Her stomach wouldn't let her. Neither would the fear. When security came around, flashlight beaming into every shadow, she didn't protest. Just walked out, head down. That was the rule: don't make noise. Don't be seen. She found herself behind Carter's Deli next, drawn there by the smell of frying oil and warmth. The dumpsters reeked, but at least they blocked the wind. She laid down on the cardboard someone else had left, pulled her jacket tighter, and stared up at the sky. No stars. Just wires and smoke. She didn't cry. Crying felt like a luxury now. The next morning, driven by hunger, she walked into a small Chinese restaurant. Her voice cracked when she spoke. I can wash dishes. I don't need money. Just maybe some food. The woman behind the counter didn't even blink. Just pointed at the door. No papers, no work. Out? Ivy stood there a moment longer, as if her body hadn't caught up with the rejection yet. Then turned and walked out, slower this time. The world didn't hate her. It just didn't care. On the fifth night, she caught her reflection in a broken storefront window. For a second, she didn't recognize it. Dirt streaked across her jaw. Hair knotted into uneven strands. Lips cracked. Eyes dull, almost gone. She stepped closer. Stared into the version of herself that used to wear pressed uniforms and brushed her teeth twice a day. That girl was gone. All that was left was a hollow frame. This isn't me, she thought. This isn't real. But it was. And with every hour, the part of her that once screamed for fairness, for dignity, for help, grew quieter. She was becoming invisible. And the terrifying part. It was starting to feel easier that way. Snow was falling again, fat, wet flakes that melted on contact and soaked through fabric in seconds. Ivy's jacket, already stiff with dirt and dampness, clung to her like a second skin made of ice. Her fingers were raw. Her stomach felt like a fist, twisted too tight. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Maybe 3. Time had stopped mattering. She was walking without thinking, head down, arms crossed tight over her ribs, when the wind carried something to her nose: food. Hot. Oily. Real. Her head snapped up. Across the street, Ruby's Grill, an old-school diner tucked between a closed barbershop and a liquor store with flickering neon. The main lights were off, but from the side alley, she spotted a soft glow behind the building. A door, half open. Ivy's breath hitched. She didn't think. Didn't plan. Just moved. The back door creaked when she pushed it, the kind of sound that made her freeze on instinct. She waited. Nothing. No voices. No footsteps. Inside, it was warm, blessedly warm. The kitchen was dark except for a lamp above the prep counter. The air smelled like garlic, soy sauce, something fried and heavy and miraculous. She stepped in. One more step. Her eyes scanned the shelves. A loaf of bread. Leftover rice in a metal pan. A pot on the stove that still felt warm when she touched it. Her hands trembled as she reached for the lid, lifting it slowly. The hell do you think you're doing? Ivy dropped the lid with a sharp clatter and bolted back, arms shielding her face. A woman stood in the doorway. Late 50s, maybe older. Wide-shouldered. Tough face, creased not with age, but life. She held a cigarette in one hand and a spatula in the other like a weapon. Her voice was low and scratchy, like gravel and bourbon. You deaf or just desperate? Ivy didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips wouldn't move. The woman took a slow drag of her cigarette, exhaled through her nose. You planning to steal or just starve in style? Ivy finally found her voice. It came out in a whisper, broken and small. I wasn't going to. I thought no one was here. I'm sorry. I'll go. She backed toward the door, stumbling over her own feet. The woman sighed. Loud. Irritated. Then she pointed toward the corner of the room where a mop leaned against the wall. If you're gonna sleep behind my kitchen, you might as well mop the damn floor first. Ivy froze. What? The woman walked past her, flicked on the overhead lights, and stubbed out the cigarette in the sink. You heard me. Floor's filthy. Grab the bucket. Mop. Then we'll talk about dinner. For a second, Ivy just stood there. She didn't know if this was real. If she was hallucinating. If this was a trap. Move it, kid, the woman said without looking. Before I change my mind. Ivy's fingers were stiff, but she picked up the mop. Dipped it in the bucket. Started working, slow and uneven. Her arms shook. Her legs hurt. But her eyes burned most of all. Not from the cold this time. From the unfamiliar sting of relief. After 20 minutes, the floor was mostly clean. Ivy leaned against the counter, panting, barely able to stand. The woman returned with a steaming plate of stir-fried noodles, pushed it toward her. You eat like you've got a death wish, I'll smack you. Take it slow. Ivy sat on the floor. Took one bite. Then another. Each one tasted like safety. Like something she thought she didn't deserve. What's your name? The woman asked. Ivy hesitated. Ivy. Well, Ivy. You're lucky, I was in a half-decent mood tonight. Thank you. Her voice cracked. The woman grunted. Then pointed with her thumb toward the back hall. Cot in the storage room. It's got a mattress. No mice. You throw up on it, you clean it. Ivy blinked, stunned. You're letting me stay? The woman lit another cigarette. One night. That's it. You earn more if you stay more. Then she walked away. Ivy stood up on shaking legs and made her way down the hall. The room was small, cluttered with shelves of canned goods and paper supplies. But in the corner, bless it, was a cot with a wool blanket and a pillow that didn't smell like mold. She sat down. Then laid back. And for the first time in weeks, Ivy cried. Not from pain. Not from fear. But because someone had seen her, and didn't look away. Morning came with the scent of burnt toast and old coffee. Ivy woke stiff and sore, her back aching from the cot, but she didn't complain. She didn't dare. She folded the blanket, made the bed, then crept into the kitchen before the sun had fully risen. Ruby was already there, sipping coffee in a chipped mug that said "Number 1 Boss" in faded letters. She didn't say good morning. Didn't ask how Ivy slept. She just pointed toward the mop and barked, "Floor ain't gonna clean itself." So Ivy got to work. She scrubbed tile until her knuckles went raw. Washed dishes until the skin of her hands wrinkled like paper. Hauled trash out back, tied bags that stank of grease and spoiled onions, and wiped down every surface Ruby pointed at with a nod or grunt. There were no words of praise. No thank yous. Just work. But work meant staying. And staying meant hope. On the third day, Ruby handed her a worn plastic name tag, peach-colored, scratched up, the print half faded. Amelia, kitchen assistant. It's not your name, but it'll do, Ruby muttered, tossing it onto the counter. Cops show up asking questions, you don't know a damn thing. Understand? Ivy picked up the tag like it was a relic. She ran her thumb over the name. Yes, Ruby raised an eyebrow. Don't me. I'm not your grandmother. Despite herself, Ivy smiled. The days bled into one another. Every morning began with cleaning, then dishes, then prep, chopping onions until her fingers reeked, stocking the fridge until her arms burned. And every night, when the last customer left and the grill sizzled down to silence, Ivy would disappear into the corner booth with a stack of library books and a stolen hour of peace. She was studying for her GED, something she never thought she'd get the chance to do. The books were water-damaged, the pages thin, but they were hers. Numbers, history dates, grammar rules. They felt like weapons. Armor. A lifeline. Sometimes she'd fall asleep mid-equation, cheek pressed to the table, pen still in hand. Ruby would find her like that, shake her gently by the shoulder. Go sleep before your brain melts, kid. Sorry, Ivy would mumble, blinking blearily. Just a few more pages. One night, after a brutal dinner rush, Ruby tossed a dish towel into the sink, lit a cigarette, and leaned against the back door. She watched Ivy mop in silence, then said, almost to herself, "You're not a bad kid." Ivy looked up, stunned. Ruby never said things like that. You just got kicked out of the nest too early. Some chicks gotta fall before they learn how to fly. Ivy swallowed hard, throat tight. I didn't even know I had wings, she whispered. Ruby gave a dry chuckle. Most don't. Not until they hit concrete. From that night on, something in Ivy shifted. She still kept her head down, still worked like survival depended on it, but her eyes held something new. Not anger. Not fear. Fire. And Ruby, though she'd never admit it, watched her with the quiet pride of someone who had seen too many fall, but maybe, just maybe, this one would fly. The day Ivy passed her GED, she didn't cry. She sat alone in a library computer cubicle, staring at the word congratulations on the screen, her fingers trembling slightly above the keyboard. For a moment, the world went completely still. Then she closed the window, packed her books, and walked back to Ruby's grill with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but was real. It was the first time in years she allowed herself to feel proud. Ruby barely looked up when she got the news. Took you long enough, she muttered, flipping eggs on the griddle. Then added, smart kid like you. Should have passed it in your sleep. But later that night, Ruby slid a small envelope across the table. Inside was a second-hand wristwatch, silver-plated, a little scratched. You got somewhere to be now. Don't be late. Ivy applied to Northbridge Community College with fingers crossed and breath held. She was accepted within 3 weeks. Business major. Full course load. No financial help. Just grit. And so began the real work. She took morning classes, pulled evening shifts at the diner, and cleaned offices at night. On weekends, she babysat, walked dogs, and handed out flyers downtown. Sleep was rationed like medicine, 4 hours here, 20 minutes there. No parties. No drinks. No boyfriends. No distractions. Just hustle. Just survival. Just her. Her backpack was always too heavy. Her shoes always slightly damp. There were days she wanted to give up, when the weight of everything, school, rent, exhaustion, her past, sat on her chest like a stone. But every time she felt herself slipping, she remembered those nights behind Carter's Deli. The hunger. The cold. And she kept going. The idea came one night during a marketing class. They were discussing product gaps, needs the market wasn't meeting. The professor asked for examples. Ivy sat frozen, her pen hovering above her notebook. She thought of all those nights she lay curled behind dumpsters, stomach empty, wishing for something warm, something nutritious, something that could keep a body going when hope ran dry. Not junk food. Not charity leftovers. Fuel. Real, clean, powerful. And not just for the homeless. For patients. For caretakers. For people too sick, too tired, or too poor to cook for themselves. That night, Ivy scribbled the word reclaim at the top of a page and circled it 3 times. It became her obsession. She spent what little she had on ingredients. Spent nights experimenting in Ruby's kitchen after closing, mixing, boiling, blending formulas rich in protein, vitamins, fiber. She studied medical journals. Read clinical nutrition guides. Eventually, she found something that worked. It wasn't glamorous. But it was compact, shelf-stable, and nourishing. She bought brown paper bags, printed her own labels at the library, borrowed Ruby's busted blender, and sealed everything by hand. Reclaim wasn't just a product. It was her story in a pouch. She filmed her first live stream on a borrowed phone. Her hands shook the whole time. Her voice cracked. Hi. My name's Ivy. I used to go to bed hungry, not because I forgot to eat, but because I couldn't. I created Reclaim for anyone who's ever been there. It didn't go viral. There were no thousands of followers. Just a handful of viewers. Then 10. Then 50. But orders started trickling in. She packed each one herself. Stuffed the bags into a second-hand backpack, strapped her helmet on, and delivered them across the city by bicycle. Every beep from her phone made her heart race. Every order was a win. Every confirmation email felt like another brick laid in the foundation she was building from scratch. Some days, she didn't sell a single unit. Others, she sold out before noon. But she never stopped. Because Reclaim wasn't about money. It was about something no one had given her when she needed it most. A chance to come back. 10 years. It had been 10 years since she'd been cast out into the snow, 17 and shaking, with nothing but a ripped backpack and a slip of paper that said, "Don't come back." Now, she did. And the moment Ivy Quinn stepped into the Whitmore Estate ballroom, the air shifted. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a countdown. Conversations dipped. Champagne paused mid-sip. People turned, not because they knew who she was, but because they felt something in the room had changed. She was dressed in a sleek, black gown. Minimalist. Flawless. It hugged her frame like armor. Her hair pulled back in a smooth knot, her lips the color of ripe wine. No jewelry except for a silver ring on her right hand, etched with the word Reclaim. Her eyes were colder than the champagne. The theme of the night was opulence, cascading florals, string quartet, servers in white gloves. And right at the center, smiling like she owned the world, stood Brielle Quinn, dripping in couture and diamond-studded lies. Next to her, Lucas Whitmore, heir to a medical empire, handsome in that clean, safe kind of way. Ivy's gaze swept the room. Nobody recognized her, not yet. Not in this skin. Not in this power. She walked past guests whispering behind flutes of Dom Perignon, stopping only when she came face to face with Dr. Everett Quinn near the bar. He was older now. Grayer. Still sharp in a tailored tuxedo, still moving with that air of detached superiority that had once crushed her like glass underfoot. His eyes narrowed slightly as she approached. "Excuse me," he said, polite but curt, as if brushing off a stranger. "Are you with catering?" Ivy didn't blink. "No." He studied her, confused, then dismissive. "Then? Who exactly are you?" She stepped closer. Close enough for him to see the gold flecks in her eyes. The ones he used to ignore. And she said, calmly, "I'm the shadow you forgot to erase." He froze. His jaw tightened. Eyes darted across her face like he was flipping through memories, trying to place her. And then, recognition. A flicker. Quick, and immediately buried. "Ivy." His voice caught on her name like it tasted foreign. She gave him nothing but a small, detached smile. "Enjoy the party, Dr. Quinn." And she walked away. The announcement had just ended when Ivy stepped into the main hall. Brielle's voice still echoed over the speakers, something about soulmates and legacy, when she turned and saw her. She blinked. Then blinked again. "No." Brielle whispered. Her eyes widened. The smile faltered. She took one involuntary step back. Ivy stood still, letting the moment hang in the air. Brielle's mask snapped back on quickly, too quickly. She let out a sharp laugh, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "Wow! Didn't think rats wore designer." There was a beat of silence. Then Ivy tilted her head, lips curling into something between pity and precision. "Better than wearing lies." Brielle's face twitched. Just a flicker, but Ivy saw it. Felt it. Lucas turned toward them, confused. "Brielle, who is this?" Brielle's voice trembled, just a little. "Just? Some distant cousin." Long story. Ivy didn't take her eyes off her. "Not that distant." She let her voice drop, low, steady, lethal. "You used to share my clothes. And my name." People were watching now. Whispers bloomed like wildfire. Someone gasped. Brielle's hand tightened around her champagne glass. Her smile wobbled. Ivy stepped closer, just enough for her voice to be heard only by Brielle. "You always did like to take what wasn't yours." Then, to the room. "Congratulations on the engagement." She raised her glass, smirk sharp as a blade. "May all your secrets be as flawless as your dress." And just like that, she melted back into the crowd, leaving behind silence thick enough to choke on. It started with a white envelope. Plain. Unmarked. Tucked neatly under Lucas Whitmore's champagne glass, right at the sweetheart table in front of 200 guests. He noticed it only when he reached for his drink. "What's this?" he murmured, mostly to himself. Brielle was mid-sentence, laughing too loudly at something the senator's wife had said. Lucas gently slid the envelope toward him, popped the seal open, and pulled out a stack of documents, neat, precise. Then he read the first line. His smile dropped. He kept reading. His eyes widened. "Lucas." Brielle's voice cut through the hum of conversation. She tilted her head, a sweet concern practiced to perfection. "Something wrong?" Lucas didn't answer. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons, and held it to his ear. After a pause, he spoke quietly. "Could you verify this for me?" "Yeah. Now." Then he picked up the papers again, transcripts, scanned emails, official seals. At the very top, bolded and undeniable. Brielle Quinn, academic records, incomplete. No degree. No board exam. No residency. Nothing but a trail of bribes and forged transcripts. Attached was a PDF of an email chain between Lillian Quinn and the former dean of St. Augustine's Medical School. We appreciate your generous donation, Mrs. Quinn. The adjusted records will reflect graduated with distinction as agreed. The last page was a voice recording transcript. Lillian on tape. I don't care what she failed. We're not ruining this engagement, because my daughter's too lazy to pass pathophysiology. Lucas put the papers down. Slowly. Is this true? He asked, quietly. Deadly. Brielle's face drained of color. What? What are you talking about? He didn't repeat himself. I said, yes. This? True. The entire ballroom fell silent. She reached across the table, voice breaking. Lucas, no, I don't, whatever that is, it's fake. It's probably her. Ivy, she's trying to ruin me. Lucas stood. Took off his engagement ring. Laid it beside his untouched plate. You did that yourself. The gasp that followed felt like thunder. Brielle's chair scraped violently against the floor as she stood, trembling. This isn't happening. This isn't fing happening. She screamed. She's lying. She's lying. Ivy stepped forward from the crowd. Cool. Controlled. Holding a second envelope. Still think rats can't wear designer? She asked quietly. And then, she dropped it on the table with a satisfying thud. Lucas opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a full IRS report. Redacted files. Offshore account logs. All traced to Dr. Everett Quinn. But the name used to open the accounts. IVM, Quinn. Identity theft. Tax fraud. Health insurance billing schemes using her social security number, all buried behind layers of corporate shell games. Ivy turned toward her father, her voice like sharpened glass. You took everything from me. Even my name. Dr. Everett didn't speak. Couldn't. Lucas looked up from the documents, eyes wide. She was 17. His voice was quiet, but seething. And you used her to hide your crimes. Ivy locked eyes with him. He didn't just hide behind me. He erased me. Somewhere in the back of the room, a guest dropped their glass. Brielle sank to her knees, gripping the tablecloth. Please, please, Lucas, don't listen to her. She's nothing. She's a mistake. Ivy tilted her head. And yet here I am, ruining your perfect little party. No one laughed. No one dared. Every eye in the room was on Ivy now, not with pity, not even shock. With awe. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply stood in the middle of the chaos, calm as a storm after the damage is done. And the storm wasn't over yet. The silence was suffocating. Brielle still knelt on the ballroom floor, her gown sprawled in a heap of silk and shattered pride. Her fingers clutched the hem of the tablecloth, her chest rising and falling in short, shallow breaths. Across the room, Dr. Everett stood frozen, hands clenched at his sides, jaw tight with denial. Lillian, in her backless emerald gown, looked around like a queen realizing the crowd had stopped bowing. And then, federal agents. Step aside, please. The doors burst open. Gasps rippled like lightning across the room as two men and one woman in black jackets strode in, crisp and sure-footed. The IRS seal gleamed on their badges like a silent death sentence. One of them, Agent Marks, unrolled a set of documents and raised his voice with professional detachment. Dr. Everett Quinn, Lillian Quinn, this is an official arrest warrant for felony tax fraud, insurance fraud, and identity theft under Federal Code section. The rest was drowned out by the collective gasp of the crowd. Lillian backed away. This is ridiculous. This is a mistake. My husband is a respected surgeon, for God's sake. You're under investigation for laundering over $2 million through offshore accounts under a stolen identity, the agent said calmly. That makes you a criminal, Mrs. Quinn. A second agent stepped forward, pulling out handcuffs. Don't you dare touch me, Lillian hissed, backing into a display of orchids that toppled behind her. Everett didn't resist. He didn't even speak. He just stared straight ahead as the cuffs clicked over his wrists, like he knew this day was coming, and had hoped to die before it arrived. Phones were already out. Guests filming, whispering, backing away slowly, as if guilt could rub off like bad perfume. No one stepped in. Not one voice said, "They don't deserve this." Not one hand reached to help. They were royalty a moment ago. Now? Just scandal. Lillian's heel snapped as they escorted her past the bandstand. She stumbled. No one offered to catch her. Ivy watched it all with a stillness too sharp to be passive. Her fingers were laced in front of her, head held high. She wasn't gloating. She didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. Suddenly, someone grabbed her wrist. Ivy. She turned. Brielle. On her knees. Makeup streaked. False lashes barely clinging to the corners of her red, swollen eyes. The girl who once laughed behind camera lenses now clutched her half-sister's hand like it was the only anchor she had left. Please? Brielle choked, her voice hoarse and broken. Please, I didn't know. I didn't mean. She let go of Ivy's wrist only to clasp both hands together. I'm sorry, okay. I'm sorry for everything. Just. Please? I'm still your sister. Right? Right? Her voice cracked on the word sister. Ivy looked down at her. Not with rage. Not with pity. With clarity. And then she leaned in, close enough for only Brielle to hear, and whispered. Forgiveness isn't something you ask for. And it's not something I owe. Then she straightened. Turned away. And walked through the parted sea of guests, every one of them now silent, eyes wide, hearts thudding. No one stopped her. No one dared. Because in that moment, Ivy wasn't a girl. She was a reckoning. Midnight air wrapped around her like silk. Ivy stepped out of the Whitmore Hotel alone, the click of her heels echoing into the quiet. The night was cool, not cold. The kind of weather that gently reminded you, you made it. You're still here. Above her, the sky was impossibly clear. Stars blinked like distant applause, quiet, but undeniable. She didn't look back. Didn't need to. The doors behind her had closed. And for the first time, they would stay closed. A matte black SUV pulled up to the curb. No rush. No headlights flashing. Just steady, certain timing. The passenger window rolled down. Nathan Cross. Same tousled hair. Same calm eyes. The kind of man who said little, but saw everything. Need a ride, CEO? He asked, one corner of his mouth lifting. Ivy smiled. The real kind. Only if you promise not to talk about market shares. He pushed the door open from inside. She slipped in without a word, exhaling like she was letting go of 10 years in a single breath. They drove in silence for a while. The city blurred outside, lights, movement, noise. None of it touched her anymore. Then Nathan spoke, eyes still on the road. So? It's over. Ivy leaned back in her seat, eyes closed. It's over. A beat. Revenge. Or peace. She turned her head to look at him. The edges of her lips curled into a smirk, lazy, tired, but alive. Cake, she said. Because freedom tastes better with strawberries. Nathan chuckled. Thought you might say that. 10 minutes later, they pulled up to a small cafe tucked between two brownstones. Eloise's Bakehouse. The windows still glowed warm, even at this hour. The place hadn't changed. Same chipped signage, same crooked flower boxes under the window. But the girl walking in this time wasn't the one who once stood outside, begging for leftover bread with cracked lips and eyes full of shame. No. This was Ivy Quinn. CEO. Survivor. Free woman. She walked up to the counter where a sleepy teenager in an apron blinked at her. Midnight snack, he asked. Yes, please, she said, eyes scanning the case. Her finger pointed. 1 slice of chocolate strawberry cake. Nathan sat across from her in their corner booth. She set the fork down slowly, deliberately, as if the moment itself was sacred. Then, bite. The chocolate melted warm and soft against her tongue. The strawberry followed, sharp, sweet, alive. Her eyes fluttered shut. And then she smiled. Not because she won. Not because they lost. But because, finally, she could taste her life. In the end, Ivy Quinn didn't need applause. She didn't need revenge to be loud, or victory to come with fireworks. All she needed was a quiet booth in a bakery she once begged at. A warm slice of cake. And the freedom to smile without permission. Because the truth is, we don't choose the hands we're dealt. We don't control the blood in our veins, the names we're born with, or the people who fail to love us. But we do choose how we rise. We choose what we build from the ruins. And sometimes, we even choose to forgive. Not for them, but for us. It wasn't the mansion that defined Ivy. Not the pain. Not the exile. Not even the hunger. It was the way she stood back up, raw, shaking, invisible, and kept walking. The way a stranger's gruff kindness cracked the door open. The way she turned survival into something beautiful, useful, real. Because sometimes, salvation isn't a miracle. It's a mop. A stove. A second-hand name tag. Sometimes, justice doesn't come in screams. It comes in stillness. A signature. A simple line whispered in the dark. I'm still here. And sometimes, the sharpest revenge isn't fury or fire. It's success. It's peace. It's the sound of your own laughter. Over cake that tastes like strawberries. And freedom.